This lesson will focus on tiling. Tiling is when you have a uh, project that is longer than the y-axis on the X-carve. The X-carve we have at the shop is a little over 29 inches wide and can support a board 29 inches long. But we can actually work on boards much longer than that by shifting them through the machine. So that's the art of tiling. So let's take a small project and see how it works. We're going to change the plywood size here to reflect the size of the piece of wood I have for this project. And that happens to be 35 3/4 inches. Oh, excuse me. Got it wrong here. 6.5 inches wide and 35.75 inches long. Now, obviously, that 35.75 inches is longer than our machine at only 29 inches. And the thickness of this board is only 1/4 of an inch, so I'll change that as well. All right. If you notice the shape of our wood on the right screen, reflects the numbers that we entered into the system, and you see it's quite long, and the lower portion is lighter in color than the darker portion. By default, Easel splits the board in half and assumes you'll want to do half on the bottom and half on the top. Let's go over to the other side where our graph paper is, and we're going to click on this button down here, which is the home button. And basically that's going to change the size of our project so it fits in the window. I'm going to close down the one on the bottom. This is the work pieces. We're only using one work piece this time, so we don't need that window open. Again, I'll hit the home button and it'll go a little bit bigger. Some things to notice here. If you look at the screen, this light blue area here reflects this area on the right. There's also a line in the middle, and that is halfway between the top and the bottom. Now we're gonna make this into a sign, and what we're gonna do is start by putting a shape in there. It's a rectangle, and we're gonna make the rectangle 5.5 inches wide and 33 inches long. All right, so that's our rectangle. Now we're also going to go to the cut area and change this to cut on the outside of the shape path, because we're going to actually want to cut this out. And also, because we're going to cut it out, we're going to move this all the way down to 1/4 inch so that we're actually cutting right through it. Anytime we cut right through something, we want to make sure we're using tabs. See the tab column down here? You can click it, yes or no. I'm going to use tabs. And because the board's pretty big, I'm going to add some more tabs here. So we'll go with 6 tabs. Now, obviously, the rectangle is a little outside of our board, so I'm going to change the position of it. It defaults to 1 inch by 1 inch from the bottom. I'm going to change that to 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch. And when I do that, the board will then fit within the material that we specified on the right screen. That y equals 1/2 inch is probably incorrect. I want that a little higher. I think that should have stayed at 1 inch. You can see that we have more room for clamping if we do that. If you look at this now, we can clamp at the top and the bottom easily. We have a 1/2 inch on either side, so we can clamp on the sides as well. And that's an important consideration. All right, in this particular one, I'm going to add some radius to it. Let's try a 1 inch radius. By default, it adds the 1 to both the X and Y axes. So 1 inch seems fine. Yeah, that ought to work. So now we're going to put some text in there since this is a sign. I'll just pick any of these fonts. We don't care which one. And we're going to type in wood workers guild. All right. Now, because we want to move it in the direction of the wood, I'm going to have to rotate it 90 degrees. So we're going to go over to the angle of rotation here. I'm going to put 90 in there. Now I'm going to take this and move it up manually into our area, and I'll just make it bigger by pulling on the corners. By pulling the corners, it'll make the width and the length change at the same time. And that's what we want. So that looks pretty good. That's a good spot. But let's look at where it's where we're going to cut, where we're going to stop cutting. If you look on the right, by default, Easel assumed that the bottom tile, which is the one, well, we can't change that. The bottom tile, which is from here to here, is half the length, which is about 18 inches. I'm going to move that up. If you look up here where we have a break in the words, looks like 24.5 would work pretty good. So I'm just going to change the lower size to 24.5. So tile 1 will be 24.5. Right. And then tile 2, as you can see that here, is the remainder of the board is 12.25. So let's look over on the left side. You can see with our graph paper, we're actually going to break this somewhere between letters. And you want to do that when you can, just to make sure there isn't just a slight difference in how you position it. Remember, when we put this in the machine, initially we're going to start with the XY equals 0 down here in the lower left corner. On the second board, that is tile number 2, this one here. Let me just click on it there. Tile number 2, we're going to start that at 24.5 inches up. So we just take a ruler, we measure up on a board 24.5 inches, and we make a nice clear mark up there, and we set X and Y to 0 at that point the next time. So we're going to move the board down. X and Y will actually remain the same, the virtual X and Y, but we're going to move the board down so that it thinks that is our X and Y point. So then when we run our second pass on this material, it'll actually take up here. And what happened here? Oh, all right, whatever. I moved the cursor and it changed the line on me there. Okay, anyway, back to this. So the first thing I'm going to do is the first pass. All right? So we would simulate that, go down and turn the simulation on, and see how long that will take. It looks like that's going to take about 15 minutes to cut that part of the board. Once that's done, we will move the board on the y-axis to our new XY position, which is up here. We're going to change this to tile number 2. I'll click here. We're in our second simulation, and now it's going to cut the upper part of the board. Now, I see that it seems something a little funny here. Let me go back and look at something. Look down the bottom here. There's something called overlap tiles. Basically what it's doing is allowing you an extra inch of measurement here to position your wood. So in our case, if we were to run this the way it is set up right now, we'd actually position the new XY at 23.5 inches, not 24.5. I don't see any reason for that in this case, so I'm going to shut tiling off. All right, now I have to reset my size, and we said that was 24.5. Now we're back to where we were. Our tiling or overlap is off. We'll have to rerun our simulation again because I didn't get it right the first time. And again, it's still going to take about 15 minutes. Then we're going to change to our second tile, reposition our board in the machine, and simply run another simulation just to make sure it's okay, and then begin our carve. So basically that's how tiling works. It's pretty straightforward. It shouldn't be too difficult to master, but it does take some practice. So I encourage you to do this. Try some scrap wood. That's what this is, and we'll see how it works out. All right. So that's it for now. See you in the next lesson.